Thank you. I want you to think about one of the most valuable lessons that you've ever learned in your life. Got it? Do you remember where you were when you learned that lesson? Most of us do. Most of us can. I know exactly where I was when I learned most of the most valuable lessons in my life. And that was sitting cross-legged on the driveway with my father as he worked on one of our cars. See, my father was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force. He stood 6 feet, 6.5 inches tall, and was 285 pounds on his very leanest day. Dad had a personality that entered the room 5 minutes before he did. The colonel was an all-around handyman, a Mr. Fix-It, truly the MacGyver of his day. He was always working on or tinkering with something. He'd work around the house. He'd work on our cars. Heck, he'd work on the neighbors' cars. And I would help him. Now, helping him normally involved keeping him company and handing him a tool every now and then. I spent so many hours of my childhood sitting at his feet as he talked to me about life. It wasn't until after he passed that I realized the value of those life lessons. You see, they were guideposts that he knew would be crucial to my health, my happiness, and my positive impact on the world. Nowadays, I call those life lessons kernels of wisdom. And they are a guidepost for me. Every day, in one way or another, the colonel challenged me to be significant. You see, most people are programmed to chase success. Success is inwardly focused. Success is about how much money I make and what my title is and what my accolades are and what my achievements are, what kind of car I drive. Success is about me. Significance, on the other hand, is outwardly focused. Significance is about we. Significance has nothing whatsoever to do with how much money I make or what my title is or what my perceived power is. It's not about compensation packages and parking spots. Significance is about how many lives you touch and the manner in which you choose to impact them. Because how we impact others is a choice. And significant leaders focus on having a positive impact on those they have the privilege of leading. Furthermore, significant leaders empower those they lead to have their own significant legacy and carry that concept forward. Indeed, you will know that you are significant when people who talk about you don't talk about what you've achieved for yourself, rather, what you've accomplished to benefit others. I've had the privilege of sitting at the feet of some very significant leaders, in addition to my father. And I've learned bits and pieces from each and every one of them. Carrying that kernel of wisdom forward has become part of my life's passion. And over the last several years, I have condensed down what I perceive to be the most invaluable characteristics of people who choose significance into what I call my 9 essentials of significant leadership. Today, I want to share one of them with you. And that is, open your mind to new possibilities. Now, sometimes that means that we need to be willing to learn from our mistakes and our misfortunes, make adjustments, and keep moving on. The colonel used to say, use what you've got, kid, and just show up. Stumbling block or stepping stone. Choice is yours. What's it going to be? Now, there are many things that have happened over the last 1.5 to 2 years that could easily be called stumbling blocks, and I don't mean to minimize any of them. But what if we could look at them from a different perspective? What if we could open our mind to new possibilities? How could you turn even one of those stumbling blocks into a stepping stone? When I was a child of 6, maybe 7 years old, Dad spent countless hours and what my mother called an obscene amount of money building a remote control airplane. Now, back in the day, they were called radio-controlled airplanes, and they were brand new. The technology was cutting edge. I remember sitting with him in the garage and helping to paint the wings and keeping him company as he worked on it every night. This thing was massive. It had a 6 feet wingspan, and it took up in the entire space in the garage during the 1.5 years that he spent working on it every night. I remember the anticipation and the excitement as we all climbed into the Jeep, pulling the plane in a flatbed behind us, and we headed out to the mesa south of Chandler, Arizona. This was the day we were going to test the bird on her maiden flight. Now, it took a couple of hours for everything to get ready. Mom and the kids, we were on runway duty. It was our job with rakes and brooms to sweep a relatively level part of the desert and make a runway so that there wouldn't be anything in the way for the takeoff. Dad had to check the wind patterns. Then he rechecked the wind patterns. And then he checked all the receivers to make sure that they were working. Then he checked the wind patterns. And then he set the cameras, both still and 8mm, to record the moment for posterity. And with one final check of the wind patterns, finally everything was ready. Dad grabbed the control box, pushed the lever forward. Here goes nothing. And the plane started rolling down our runway, faster and faster. And it seemed before we knew it, the bird was in the air and flying and flying and flying. Mom squinted into the sun. Are you going to turn it back before it gets out of range? We watched it fly into the distance. I'm not sure how to do that. I didn't think that far ahead. I didn't think she'd actually fly today. So there we stood, watching a 1.5 years of my father's life and an obscene amount of money fly off into the sunset, never to be seen again. Oh, we drove for hours across the desert looking for it till well after dark, but we never actually found the bird. And while Mom never let Dad forget that first lost toy, the lessons we learned from that radio-controlled incident were invaluable. We learned to expect the unexpected. We learned to always have a backup plan. And Dad learned to never again share with Mom how much he'd spent on one of his projects. More importantly, though, that initial remote control debacle taught Dad valuable lessons. For him, it was not a stumbling block. It was a stepping stone. It inspired him to build a second and many more after that. And with each new model, he improved the design, sometimes sculpting his own airfoils. He tried hundreds of different materials, and some of them worked well, others didn't. And when he became the division chief for the Air Force Flight Dynamics Laboratory, his tenacity paid off as he and his team created new designs and new materials for drones and planes that are still in the air today, like the B-2 stealth bomber and the F-series fighter jets. What are the stumbling blocks that you've encountered, or maybe are working with right now? Now, granted, some of them may be bigger than seeing a 1.5 years of your life and a couple of $1,000s fly off into the sunset, never to be seen again. But what if you could look at them differently? How could you take what you've learned from the past year and put it in practice to be of service first? How could you open your mind to new possibilities and use the lessons from the last year to become more significant than you've ever dreamed that you could be? Folks, I am the Colonel's daughter. Significance and significant leadership is a passion in my life. I wake up every day to help organizations and associations build their next generation of leaders. Whether it's with keynotes or training sessions or longer-term consulting partnerships, I use my 9 essentials of significant leadership to change the way managers think, make decisions, and behave toward the people they lead. Organizations bring me in because I bring a fresh new perspective to the table and a street-smart approach to what works and what doesn't. And I help speed change in 3 critical areas: knowledge, skills, and relationships. And as a result, your people will be more focused on what matters every day. They will lead with integrity and compassion and model standards of excellence that others will aspire to and follow. That's what significant leadership is. Folks, anyone can be successful. I want your people to be significant. Thank you very much.